For those of you who have been following this channel since the beginning, or even those that have discovered us since and browsed through our immense back catalogue of videos, I'm sure you will no doubt be aware of a certain type of video emerging every now and then. A video that presents a seemingly controversial opinion which either provides a straightforward fan analysis or uses it as a narrative device to subvert expectations. Today I'm going to be doing neither of those things. Instead, I'm going to be spending this video talking about these videos, the reason they exist, and our thinking behind them, as well as what lies ahead for this channel. I also think it's worth noting that this isn't a smug, self-congratulatory, hey look at us aren't we great piece. Most of the content we'll be looking at has served as a double-edged sword, and I won't be holding back on self-criticism where it's warranted. So, a bit of context. FiveWhoFans is a collaborative channel made up of, you guessed it, 5 Doctor Who fans, all producing what's intended to be entertaining content. It's had a long history ridden with channel deletions, but since its return in 2012 it seems to have done okay, or at least it hasn't been deleted again. Before the relaunch, many videos have been vlog-orientated, with members simply sitting in front of the camera and having an unscripted natter about their day, or something concerning Doctor Who that they found interesting. The decision upon our return was to move more towards sketches and scripted content, which would hopefully prove to be more entertaining. That's nothing against their previous members though, who were given a week between the next upload. We, on the other hand, had decided upon a new schedule, with one member a week allowing ample time to decide upon and produce fun content. But, as I'm sure you are aware, Doctor Who fans are opinionated beasts, and we are no exception. I imagine it's near impossible to find a long-term fan of anything that isn't intensely incensed by some aspect that has, in their view, polluted their passion. For some Harry Potter fans, it's the cursed child. For many Community fans, it's the gas leak year. And for poor, innocent, naive John in 2012, it was the new Doctor Who title sequence. I won't go into too much detail, but the video is no longer available. It's worth bringing up though, because this is undoubtedly the video that started it all. Suffice to say, it was an unrestrained, if informed, rant against the new iteration of the title sequence that the team of the time had found, shall we say, deeply flawed on a technical level. If it had remained public, I've no doubt that the new Doctor Who titles suck would be one of our top viewed videos, but maybe not for the reasons we'd hoped. You see, whilst John's video did spark a lot of agreement amongst our small community, there was also a noticeable amount of anger and disagreement from people outside our subscriber base with alternate opinions. It's something we hadn't encountered before, and certainly not something we'd planned. Throwing ourselves into the deep end seems a suitable analogy here. Looking back, I really don't think we responded to that negativity maturely. When you find yourself receiving dozens upon dozens of antagonistic and occasionally quite personal comments, it's easy to get defensive. Thanks to us being a collaborative channel, things never got too bad because we always had each other to confide in, and half an hour of jolly jokes and larks put it out of our minds. In retrospect though, it did sometimes feel like we were ganging up on people. I think the epitome of this is embodied in the video I made responding to the criticisms titled "The New Doctor Who titles Still Suck." Again, this video is no longer available, but if you want the gist of it, it pretty much comprised of me responding to messages picked out of the comment section of John's video. Watching it back now, I'm relieved I didn't give out the names of the channels, but the way I respond to these is so aggressive, if a little exaggerated for entertainment value, I'm surprised it didn't permanently damage the reputation of the channel. If 5 years of this has taught me anything, it's that hitting back at spiteful comments in the same tone only fuels the flames, something that at that point I had yet to learn. I don't think my ignorance justifies this, but I do hope that it serves to add a little context and understanding as to why that video played out as it did. In many ways, those two videos could be considered as somewhat of a misstep for us, but at the same time, John's video was taking off in a way that our other videos had not. For better or worse, people were responding and connecting with our content. And that is what drove the next few videos. Classic Doctor Who Sucks, which was released alongside my video about John's, plays its cards a little differently. I'd started getting really into classic Doctor Who at the time, having only really watched the Dalek stories and what might be considered essential viewing such as The Five Doctors, Earthshock and Spearhead from Space before then, but I wanted to find a way of expressing this in a unique way. To do this, I decided to use the format of John's title video as a narrative device, with me beginning the video stating how much I dislike Classic Who before being proven wrong at the 4-minute mark by, well, me. I know this sounds crazy looking back, but I honestly expected people to watch to the end. Unfortunately, I was wrong, and the idea of subverting people's expectations for entertainment purposes ended up resulting in the online equivalent of slipping on a huge pile of nothing and falling flat on my stupid fat face. There are now hundreds of people out there who've disliked and posted negative feedback on the video without watching it in its entirety. I attempted something similar with my next seemingly controversial video of why William Hartnell is the worst Doctor, but decided to make the gag immediately clear straight after the title sequence instead of halfway through. My thinking was, if people couldn't make it to the halfway point before making a judgment, I should make it clear straight from the off. Somehow, and I honestly don't know how I managed it, that video did worse. It seemed baffling to us that people would make an immediate judgment before watching more than half the video, and it was that frustration that initiated quite possibly our most controversial video to date, Why Doctor Who Sucks and So Do You. Again, I'm going to keep it brief or we'll be here all day, but the long and the short of it is that Richard threw out a set of opinions, some of which were his own, some of which were generalisations gathered from corners of the fandom which were unhappy. There was more to it than just frustration at some of the responses we've been getting, because Richard was also concerned about the nature of the fandom itself, leaning more towards the likes of Biebers or One Directions. If you want to get a better idea of why it was made, check out Dude Where's My Fandom, where Richard goes into a little more detail. I think those two videos serve as an apt way of demonstrating how we used to function as a channel. In the earlier days, when our audience was considerably smaller, we essentially produced stuff for ourselves. Back then I'd probably end up making anything that made Richard guffaw uncontrollably over Skype. We do still produce stuff that we personally enjoy, but nowadays our audience is very much kept in mind too. Thankfully, most of you guys share the same sense of humour as us, and I don't think that's an accident. At the time, Richard provided a great analogy, suggesting that these videos served to sift out the people who didn't get our content, leaving those that were totally on board with our silly, surreal, satirical stuff. A kind of initiation, if you will, a flippancy detector. The problem that arose from this technique, however, was that it was beginning to affect the way people outside a subscriber base, and sometimes even within it, saw us. At this point, it's probably worth noting one of the central criticisms or judgments that spring up in relation to these videos, that criticism being that they're simply clickbait. And yes, that position does hold some weight, but I would argue that clickbait implies that we're shortchanging people, whereas in the case of classic Doctor Who Sucks, we're playing with expectations in order to offer something else that's more satisfying and in-depth than a simple fan rant. It's really not uncommon for us to use this technique of subverting expectations, and there are various examples of it that you might not have considered. Dan's Doctor Who Titles Rock video was, yes, in part made to praise Capaldi's amazing new title sequence, but we also used it to outline criticisms in how it was being altered both visually and in the musical timing. John's Laszlo unboxing video becomes an exaggerated parody of unboxing videos. The Patrick Troughton tribute that Dan and Phoenix recently worked on together became, well, it was something else entirely, and by the time it came back to the subject matter, you'd completely forgotten what the title of the video had been. It's also quite an inclusive thing. Once you've watched it, you're kind of in on it with the rest of us. I guess what I'm trying to say is, the term clickbait, in my mind, implies that we're being cynical and deceptive, but in truth, pretty much all of our videos that allegedly fall into that have actually been made that way in order to enhance their entertainment. So how has this negative reputation come about? Well, at the end of the day, we're a victim of our own success. If you check out the most viewed videos on our channel, these ones are way up there on that list. People watch these videos, or at least the first few seconds of them, look no further and assume that's all we make, when, as I mentioned before, there are hundreds of other videos knocking about. I mean, just last month we had a stop-motion animated figure adventure following Davros divorcing Davros so he could run away with Davros. For more examples of the marvellous nonsense we produced, look no further than our 2016 video. But why are we making these videos? To stir controversy? To get hits? Well, obviously there's an element of that at play, but more than anything it's because no one else is making these kind of video essays, or at least as far as I'm aware, despite a significant proportion of the fandom feeling the same way. I'm not going to pretend we have a huge following, because in the grand scheme of things we really don't, but over the years we've had to acknowledge that within the fandom we do have a voice. A small, squeaky, irritable voice, but a voice all the same, and it would be simply irresponsible not to do something with it. To let people know in the face of all this that it's okay to take an occasional step back, analyse and criticise, rather than blindly accept what's being handed to us. Because that's how things change. The more recent iterations of these videos, such as Why Clara Has to Die and Why Peter Capaldi Needs to Leave, have learnt from the mistakes of their predecessors, subverting what might have been all the signs of an unscripted rant into carefully structured opinion pieces. Yeah, we basically added tact. Of course, that's not in any way reduced the controversy that comes with them, but they've said things that I felt very passionately about and presented an opportunity to discuss fascinating ideas and talking points rather than induce another rendition of the last great flame war. That's not to say certain people in the comment section don't have a good go though. I won't blame them though. Hey, you guys are passionate, so are we. But And this is worth making note of for any future discussions or arguments you have online, Doctor Who related or otherwise. A little civility goes a long way. To conclude, yes, we've developed a reputation that's not completely unjustified, but we've also made connections with people and opened previously unexplored discussions. And like I said before, it's a double-edged sword, but hey, that's life. For every few people who turn away, someone gets it. Someone who might not even agree with us, but someone that understands what we're doing and what this is for. And I'm more than happy to meet that someone in the comments section. The question to ask now is, what lies ahead for us? Where these videos are concerned, not much. I don't know about the others, but I've pretty much exhausted what I've got left to talk about, and these essays, whilst gathering a lot of interest, are all too often a bit of a poison chalice. That's not to say I've regretted the more recent tactful iterations though. We'll be taking a month's break as a channel in January while we prepare for our next batch of videos and a wee bit of a brand change, but mostly because this January, guys, this January is going to be so full of online content, more online content than any January before it, that it's better just to hold off for a few weeks to stop your heads exploding. Happy New Year from FiveWhoFans, and here's to 2017.